trying to teach anything. I'm just saying, hey, here's how I raised my game from becoming the guy who could cross an ocean, believing in myself, and take it and see how you can put it into your own life and how you can use that.
Welcome to Engage Presents. I'm Engage co-founder and president Jake Olson. In this interview series, I ask Engage talent the most common questions we hear from event planners to help you get to know them and their stories in 15 minutes or less. Thanks for listening. Welcome to another episode of Engage Presents. I'm Engage President Jake Olson. Alongside me today, a fascinating individual, one of these guys that you just know drives differently than the rest of us. Cyril, Derreumaux, thank you so much for joining us today. He is a two-time world record holder. He is a keynote speaker, inspires many. I'm not going to give too much away because we're about to hop right into it. But Cyril, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jake. I'm so happy to be here.
All right, Cyril, you just got back from a 71-day journey traveling solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Explain to us what you did, what vessel were you in, kind of what even made you want to do something like that?
Yeah, so my kayak is about 7 meters long, and I took off from the east side of the Atlantic Ocean to cross all the way to the Caribbean. And indeed, it took me 71 days where I take off alone. So it's an adventure which is solo. I'm alone on the boat, unsupported. The moment I push the pier to the moment I get to the other side, nobody's giving me anything. I'm not followed by a boat, and it's completely fully human powered. So no engine, no sail. And for 71 days, I don't see land. I don't walk. I don't see any other human being. I'm alone completely in the beautiful ocean. And I create this amazing connectedness with the oneness and the world. And I get into a spiritual retreat, so to speak. And so that's not my first time. I did 2 years ago the Pacific Ocean from California to Hawaii in 91 days. So this one was not a walk in the park. It was less, but still so many learning opportunities that I love to share with my audience.
I have so many questions. I mean, you when we hopped on, you said just quickly how you're just learning how to walk again, getting back to getting your knees and your joints back to, holding and bearing weight. So, that was something I didn't think about is you're not standing really for 71 days in that kayak. But what other surprises kind of came to you that maybe, this could be for the Pacific Ocean too, since that was kind of your first journey, but either journey, what kind of came to you and surprised you that you said, man, I just never thought this would, I'd feel like this or this would happen?
Well, that once you get into a solo expedition like this, there's so many things you have to adapt, right? Going from land where you're dry, you get into this little boat where I'm completely soaked all the time. The first 2 weeks are hard because, I'm sleep deprived. I have to wake up every hour to see if there's container ship coming my way. So my level of awareness is growing so much the first 2 weeks, but I'm seasick too, right? Because the first week is like your brain is like, what are you doing? Like there's waves all over the place. I don't sleep well because it's rolling and rocking. And then my body is like, okay, you're going from pretty much sedentary. My training is about 2 to 3 hours a day, the 6 months leading to that. But then suddenly I started paddling 12 to 14 hours a day. It's and then I start to eat freeze-dried meals, drinking water from the ocean that I desal. I've got a desalinator. It's just like a shock. And once you get into adapting to the mode of being on the ocean, something happens that is magical where you feel one with the waves and just with the oneness. You could call it God or whatnot. There's something's happening and the connection with the birds. There's birds every day that come to say hi, even in the middle of the Pacific and middle of the Atlantic. And then you start to see dolphins and whales and wow, it's just amazing, man.
Okay, this is again, we're not going to get too deep because I want to continue talking, about you and your speaking. But you just said whales, dolphins. Are there sharks too? Because that's something I definitely thought about.
Oh, everything's in the ocean is coming to say hi. Yeah, I saw a swordfish that was as big as my boat. It's 23 feet long.
Oh,
I saw sharks, but the sharks are like, man, coming checking you out. They're not very aggressive at all. I'm not going to swim when they're there. But there's flying fish, there's tuna. It's like National Geographic on a slow pace because I'm so slow. My kayak is going at 2 miles an hour. So that's why it took me 2 months and a half to cross those oceans. I'm very slow. My boat is big for a kayak, but it's small
Right.
for a boat. Yeah.
Cyril, what drives you to do something like that? I think a lot of times when you hear people do, it's extraordinary, you kind of, what started them on that, or what made them do that? What made you want to, traverse the Pacific and the Atlantic alone in a kayak for 2 or 3 months?
Well, it comes gradually. Although for me, I think it's started late. I never kayaked before I was 32. And it took me 10 years to between the moment I put my butt in a kayak to the moment I said, I think I can cross alone, which is very short, right? I think inherently my personality is the one of enjoying life to the fullest, living life in all the senses that I can feel. Like, what does it feel to be alone on the ocean? What does it feel to push your boundaries and to be in a storm, and then the gratification of pushing your boundaries and your comfort zone and finally get to the other side? And um, so let me tell you a bit. I'm French and American now too, but I'm a citizen of the world. I've lived in many countries. I've been here in California for 15 years. I worked in the wine business, but I lived in Argentina for a year and a half. I was in Brazil for 6 months. I lived in England for a year, in Italy for a year and a half, in Spain for a year. I just love to travel. I'm thinking inherently I've got this personality. Like, hey, what if I could do that? Like, can I do that? Sure. I mean, why not?
And that kind of attitude and what it takes to then go and do that, obviously, is somewhat of what you talk about in your keynote speeches. Tell us kind of how your story and that attitude, that mindset translates to your audience, whether it be a Google or a Fortune 500 company or
Yeah.
school, whatever it is.
Well, there's so many values that I carry in my adventures. Believing in yourself, having ambition, having a vision, and maybe risk taking. How do you manage risk? How do you work with a team? How do you inspire people to follow you? How do you become a leader? How do you create that energy that people want to believe in your project? And adapting always and always, adapting every day, to new things. You can be prepared, but you're never really prepared for everything.
Right.
How do you adapt mentally? Because being alone, how do you prepare to be mentally? How do you manage your emotions? So all these learnings that I've had through my adventures, are easily transferable to the business world, but also to the world of your real life, your family, your job, your decision you make. So I'm not trying to teach anything. I'm just saying, hey, here's how I raised my game from becoming the guy who could cross an ocean, believing in myself, and take it and see how you can put it into your own life and how you can use that.
That's so cool. So, for an event planner who's thinking about booking you, bringing you in to come speak to their company, tell us, what is it like to work with Cyril, from the pre-event, pre-call to the actual event, on stage presentation. Just kind of give us a lowdown of what it's like to work and hear Cyril speak.
Right. So I'm a professional. So I've done that for the last 4 years. What I really want to understand is the feel from the client. What is the theme of um, their 2 day kickoff, or what do they need? And usually there's a match that is happening in between. I can always adapt a little bit my talk, but there's got to be a match. Like, if they talk about ambition and feeling, like the sky is the limit, and what it is to do something for the first time. I did a conference for AI. It's a bunch of like 200 tech people that are, trailblazers in AI. And I was just telling them, here's the mentality and the mindset that you have to have when you're trying to do something that has never been done before. So even though I talk about kayaking and crossing oceans and being against world record, it correlates to just about anything. I can really adapt it to what they need.
Cyril, I have one last question just before we sign off here. When you arrived in the Caribbean, please tell me you sat on the beach and put a drink in your hand and just enjoyed what you just did.
Oh, yes. Well, what's fantastic about this is all the simple pleasures are enhanced. I slept in a sleeping bag that was wet, damp, moving all the time. So just arriving at home with a nice shower, hot shower, cold beer, and just hugging friends and family that are here. And after being alone, I just enjoy so much that. But yeah, my first thing was a a fresh mango. I wanted fresh mango, nice fruit.
I love that. Well, Cyril, you are an outstanding guy and just a motivator for sure. We have so many more questions we could ask, but I want to leave it to whoever's watching this to be able to book you to hear all about your adventures and your stories, and make sure to do that. Go to letsengage.com and check out Cyril. Book him for your next event. Cyril, thank you so much for just sharing a little bit about your mindset, what goes into, again, what you do and how you can share that with an audience. So with that, thank you again, Cyril, and stay tuned for more Let's Engage Presents.